Broc Glover here at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis, Indiana, where we're getting ready for round 10 of the Monster Energy AMA Supercross Championship and round 5 of the East Coast. And I have co-host Martin Davalos, the team manager of the Firepower Honda team. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Broc. I'm excited to be here. We had a pretty awesome start of the season. A little hiccup last weekend at Birmingham, something out of our control, but you know, I tell my riders, I tell myself, you know, it's never over until it's actually over. So we're here to try and perform as good as we did on the first couple rounds and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, you went from, honestly, kind of a dream start, privateer team like yourself, to have the red plate with Max Anstey leading that 250 SX East and having it, and then going, honestly, he fell from, with the DNF last week in Birmingham, he fell from 1st to 8th in the points. I mean, that's how competitive this class has been. But you know, if you want to discuss a little bit what happened, it sounded like it was a valve train issue. Is that?
Yeah, well, it was a spring. It was no OEM spring that we run on. We've been running on our bike for over 2 years now. This is the first time that's ever happened. Very low. I mean, a race engine. You know, everybody knows what low hours this thing is. Very devastated for Max and for us as well. You know, we really work. I can't even explain how hard we work. We are a 5-man team. And I feel like we are, our bike is very good. It's credible. We're racing against multi-million-dollar factories, and I'm super proud of what everybody's doing. You know, I think it's just a teamwork. We all work really hard. We have one goal, and our goal is to provide for our riders. And I feel like we're doing what we can.
You're doing a great job, and no question about it. So again, we're here at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. I mean, you look back at the history of this, we're celebrating 50 years of Supercross 2024, but this is the 34th Indianapolis Supercross that we've had here, 17th race that we've actually had in the Lucas Oil Stadium. And looking back at the very first Supercross in 1992 in the RCA Dome, the old one they used to have before they tore it down and built this, won by Jeff Stanton back then. So, and then you look back and the very first Supercross they had in this stadium was in 2009, and it was won from none other than the birthday boy, Chad Reed. So happy birthday, Chad Reed. March 15th is his birthday. He shares it with our daughter, so I remember it every year. And Chad is down in Texas right now with his kids racing at the Spring-a-Ding-Ding event, so it's pretty cool. But James Stewart was second that night, and Chad's teammate on a Suzuki was third. Can you name his teammate in 2009?
2009.
Suzuki factory.
It would be, yeah, I mean, isn't it Michael Essie?
Michael Essie, there you go. He was the third, rounded out the podium that night at the very first Supercross they had here in the Lucas Oil Stadium. So that's pretty cool. And if you might remember too, in 2020 when the COVID pandemic hit, many of us were on airplanes and on our route coming here, and that's when this race became, first they were debating on whether to have a race with no fans, and then they decided just to completely cancel it. So our rig was already here. I think I was in Detroit. It just landed with a lot of the riders or the mechanics and staff coming from the different teams. I remember everybody's phone just going ding, 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 ding with messages and saying, hey, race is canceled, turn around, head back home. So a lot of us turned around and just went right back, never even landed in Indianapolis. So.
Yeah. It's very crazy. I remember that like it was yesterday. You know, it was you just couldn't believe that Supercross got canceled. You know, and yeah, it's one of those things.
Well, they made up for it because they came back in the following year and had 3 of the residency rounds right here in Indianapolis, which was very enjoyable. Everybody likes to race. As you can see, this is this primo Midwest dirt. It's just a topsoil. You could plant crops in it and do whatever you want here. A little bit soft, a little bit wet. Last year, kind of similar conditions. This dirt is stored outdoors. It's not really covered, so you're under the elements. They brought the dirt in about a month ago, had the Monster Jam here, but they had to take the dirt out because the NFL Combine was here. So that's kind of an interesting in and out dealing with the weather. But the dirt is really primo. You mentioned it earlier, how much you'd really like to ride this.
Yeah, I mean, right now the track is prepped, brand new. I'm looking at it and I'm just thinking, man, if I can just get a bike and just rip for a couple laps. But this is a very tricky race, you know, like it looks amazing, but I mean, it digs, you know, and it will get very rough.
Well, let's talk about that trickiness. First and foremost, when you've got a track like this, there's no question the first qualifying group out each time is going to be the 250C practice. So those guys are going to have a huge advantage running this perfect track, because almost each time they're on the track, they're going to have a prepped track. But on the flip side, as the main events go along, and this being a Triple Crown, you have 3 main events in each one. So if you do make it out, if somebody from the C, which doesn't happen often, but when they get to that main event, they're going to be riding on a very rutted track. So that's going to be a challenge, having only practiced on a very smooth track.
Yeah, and like you said, the C riders, this is a great opportunity for them because, I mean, the track is going to get chewed up so much by the time the A guys or the B group is going to come. So if they can get that one fast lap, that's all it takes to get into and they only take 18 in this Triple Crown scenario.
Yeah, and then you've got a chance to qualify through and kind of an LCQ that happens before opening ceremonies, so that's an interesting thing. So again, the importance of trying to make sure you get a great start is so important in those Triple Crowns, and to do it 3 times in a row. And we've seen Max, like last week he qualified first, so Max Anstey was first in qualifying, but without that great start in the main event, it makes it more difficult. So now you have to do it 3 times.
Yeah, it's challenging. We've talked about it. Max understands as well. You know, this weekend in particular, and even last weekend, you've seen it in Birmingham, we have a pretty long start straightaway. So that's going to benefit, I feel like, the whole field. You know, it like evens out everything. So, you know, you get a more of a legit start. You know, it's not a quick 90 into the rhythm section. So they're running almost the whole field. So
yeah, that's what I was looking for. 260 feet to that first corner there. So it runs about 3/4 of the length of the floor here, and then you've got right here to the hole shot line. It's about 350 feet right here. So kind of an interesting. You turn inside of what we're going to see, the sand track. We'll hit that later on. But coming right into this corner, we did get to watch this today in press day, and these sections definitely rutted up, and the faces of these jumps got deep ruts in them. And this track particularly, I noticed, probably had more different combinations. So as the track gets more rutted up, the riders are going to be able to go off rhythm and change up their combinations. And it had it in this section, it had it over there, it had it over there. It's multiple options and multiple lines. But in the early sessions, they were wheeling this first one, and at this point right now, or popping the first and hitting this next and trying to triple into the corner, or they were rolling this, doubling this, and then tripling into the corner. So many different options here. And, you know, it's going to matter when you get on the track and how beat up the track is.
Yeah, and I think it's very important, as I think we're all going to know that there's going to be a fast line. There's going to be a fast line that everybody's going to take. But when, you know, the third main event, the track is getting beat up, that fast line becomes maybe not the so fastest. So if you can get off rhythm and avoid all those ruts, then another option becomes really available and something you can make up time. So a lot of the people like Cooper Webb, you know, they're so smart, such smart riders. They're able to find that rhythm that upsets all the people because they're making so many mistakes.
Yeah, and right now, these riders got to ride in the press day. Derek, if you turn around here, they were doing the tight corner like we see in the first corner, but they never got to ride the sand. So they're going to be coming out with a significant amount of speed coming out of that. And then they're going to have to decide, am I going to wheelie the first one, hit the second, pop this, so they're downsiding this one, and then tripling into the corner, which I think is going to be the fastest in the smooth conditions without ruts. Then when it gets different, when the ruts start developing, we actually saw some riders going off rhythm, doubling the first, so they hit this next one, and then they were tripling and then singling into the corner. And this track has a lot of 180s, so, you know, the overall length of the track is 1,815 feet. It's almost 100 feet shorter than last year when they were running in the mid-40s. But again, it wasn't a Triple Crown. They didn't have as much track prep. You know, it's a little bit different. Got a couple more 180s in this corner, this track, I think, so it could slow it down. But I still expect these guys to pop to, you know, mid-40s.
Yeah, I agree. I think mid-40s is a pretty realistic lap time. And, you know, as you mentioned, this is one of my favorite layouts. You know, you have a lot of 180s. It just brings a lot of good passing. You know, you're able to change lines. You're able to cut down. You're able to rail the outside. So, you know, when it gets at a lot of 90s, you know, it's more follow the leader. So I feel like this is going to be a really good Triple Crown.
Oh, very good. So 180 into this corner. We got to see a lot of different options here during the press day. Some guys were hitting it hard, coming out of this corner right here and hitting it hard enough before the ruts got real deep, and they're actually tripling all the way into the little roller before the triple. But other guys we saw hitting it tight, hitting the single, coming off of the corner, just rolling the first one, and then going as the track got less and less rutted, they were looking for a smoother option, rolling that first one, and then tripling as far as they could, even over that knob there.
Yeah, and I think as it develops, that turn, you know, with this specific dirt is going to get so choppy. So what is the fastest way you can do? You know, now we know the fastest way is going to go 3 and then single into the triple, but as it develops later on, maybe double, able to find a more consistent way throughout the race.
So Martine, let's talk about you. I really enjoy these walks because I get to do more in-depth research of my co-hosts, and I always think, oh yeah, I know a lot about certain stuff. No, I don't. I really don't. I start realizing, I know you raced a long time, 16 seasons as a pro out here. That was pretty remarkable. And you came to this country from Ecuador as a young kid.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy that you're saying it to me right now because I don't realize it, that it's been that long. But man, I'm so proud of my career. Regardless, I never got to win the championship, but man, just coming from Ecuador, as you and I have talked about, it's such a small country. The elevation there, as nobody knows.
There we go. We talked about
that. Yeah, the elevation that, you know, I keep telling, like, everybody's talking about Colorado. I'm like, dude, Quito, where I live, is higher than Colorado. They're like, how is that possible? I'm like, it's possible.
Higher. They talk about a mile-high city of being 5,280, right, in elevation. Are you kidding me? You've got 9,350 feet is what I looked up. Your hometown. 9,350. Could you breathe when you were a little kid? Did you ever ride a bicycle and go, or it's just normal because that's where you grew up, right?
Well, it's normal, yeah. And, you know, it's crazy. Like, I felt like when I went to Salt Lake City or Colorado, I just felt at home, you know, and a lot of people made fun of me because I'm like, I feel normal, you know, and I think it's just because I was born there. But yeah, Quito, small town. I'm proud of my career.
Small town is the capital of Ecuador, though,
yeah,
right?
but
it's still small town.
I mean, it's super small compared to, you know, U.S. And I'm thankful that I got the opportunity to come here, and America welcomed me and gave me this amazing opportunity, you know. And I'm so proud. My parents have done so much for me, and now I have a wife and kids, and I hope my son does.
Living in Florida, right?
Living in Florida, I hope my son doesn't like to race, but yeah. You
got your hands full being a manager. I mean, this is your 3rd year as the team manager, and I know, as you said, you're a small team, 5 people on your staff basically, and you work really, really hard. So between yourself and Dean Wilson, and you got Max, and you got to keep those top riders going.
Yeah, I agree, and you know, hopefully we can continue to improve. For me, as you know, I keep looking at this opportunity that I have. I used to be a factory rider. I also was a privateer, and my intention is, the window of opportunity to be in a factory team is short, right? And if we can just provide to these riders, sometimes, you know, they're not able to perform at their best in that factory environment.
The pressure.
If we can provide a bike that is, you know, it's really believable and capable of being on the podium, that's what I want to be.
Well, awesome. If you're not going to be on a factory back team, you might as well be on a Firepower Honda or something similar, because you guys do produce. And it was proofs in the pudding with Max leading the championship up until a little DNF happened. But that happens even to the top team. So coming off of this triple right here, we're coming into kind of an in-zone corner section, 90-degree corner. And this was an interesting single table. And the riders afterwards came in and told, you know, there's kind of that balance between the steeper you make a jump, and if it's soft, the harder and more impact. I mean, it's pretty simple physics. The harder at the base of that jump the rider or the bike is going to hit, because it's steeper, you know, steeper face of the jump. So the deeper and harder those ruts get, and then they start bottoming the bike and they start grabbing the foot pegs. And almost every top rider that came off a press day, they came over to the Dirtworks crew and said, yeah, you guys need to tone them down a little bit so that we don't get such deep ruts at the base. And it is mostly a safety thing, and I understand. So coming out of this corner, they did tone it down just a tiny bit. Onto the table right here, there's no knobs, no lift, no anything, and these guys were having to use a lot of strength and power. So you got to remember, these are going to run 3 main events, probably 15, 16 lap main events for the 450s, and you're lifting that 230, 40 pound motorcycle really aggressively here. And to get this next table, I saw a lot of physical effort to go here on, and then over the single here.
Yeah, I agree. I think this section, to me personally, as I'm looking at it, I think this is going to be the make it or break it. This is going to either going to make a lot of time or lose a lot of time, because if you don't hop on to this tabletop and you case it and have to roll, the guy in front of you is going to pull you and see you later. So I think setting up this 90 and getting a clean on off is going to be, I feel like it's going to be a very important thing on this 3 main events coming up.
And coming off of this here into the single, you know, if you were able to, I don't even know, you probably couldn't. I didn't see anyone really downsiding that. They were either doubling this or singling. You know, most of them were coming off single and into here, and then some were going wide, and I saw Tomac do this a couple of times. In this corner right here, if you look at it, it almost looks like an unfinished product, but it's actually works pretty good because it doesn't make an advantage of going way outside. So it gives the riders 2 options. Tuck it in tight, and this is what I saw. It seemed like Sexton was doing over and over, staying in pretty darn tight here and rolling this next one. And then I saw Tomac come out here, really, I don't want to call it roast the clutch pretty hard, but hit it real hard and get all the way up onto the table, which was a long ways.
Yeah, that's a long way.
Yeah, it was a long ways. And then, or you downside, and then they would hit the face of the table and triple, or what Chase was doing was singling here, and then launching here, downsiding the table, and then from there he would go, you know, or, you know, I saw that, and then I also saw him single here onto the table, clear the next one, and that seemed like a long ways, but once he did that, he was able to triple. So again, we talked about earlier, all the different options on this track. There are a lot of different options, and as the ruts get deeper and deeper, these guys are going to go off rhythm, and they're going to fall back on option A, option B, option C, and so they're going to have that in their mind, and I'm sure they're going to practice it and practice in qualifying to know, like, okay, if the track does this, I'm going to go to this option. If the track does that, I'm going to this.
Yeah, and I've talked to Max about it. You know, when he finished press day as well, we talked about these other options he needs to try during practice, you know, and as we talked about that 90 coming in, that 90 will set you up for this 90 over here. So you have to actually connect all these 90s for it to have a good flow. You know, you don't want to start, you know, coming in too hard, coming in at a bad angle. So you want to be able to keep your momentum and be able to, you know, perform these rhythm sections, especially because they're going to get really rutted.
Yeah, and they've added a little bit of a knob over here that wasn't here on press day, but it doesn't have it over here. So they're encouraging.
I feel like that's a reward that they've done. If somebody like Eli that is going 3 on, that is a big 3 on. So they are rewarding him with a knuckle because he's done that. So he's able to go off a little more calm and then continue with the rhythm section. They'll go 3 and you know 3-1, I believe, or that's another 90 that is going to become, you know, very fast as people are trying to, you know, finish this rhythm section at a good, you know, good way.
Yeah, these are like 4-footer, maybe 5, but it doesn't go all the way down. So it's kind of a camelback here, like a 5-5-5, and then like a 3, and then a 4-4 is what it looks like, or something along that line here. So again, a lot of different combinations. They clearly have toned down the steepness of these jumps since press day in the last couple hours here. But so let's talk about, you know, to call this Ken Roczen's house. I mean, you almost got to say, at least in the last 5 races they've had here. In the 2022, when they had the 3 rounds here, Ken Roczen swept all of them. Then Tomac came in with 1 win, and then Roczen wins last year with Barcia breathing down his neck. I think it was 0.7 seconds that it separated Barcia in second place for Ken Roczen's win last year. So he's won 4 of the last 5 here. And then looking back at your stats, first of all, I mean, I couldn't believe when we talked about it. You had 120 top 10 finishes, and you rode everything from 450 Supercross, 450 Motocross, 250 Supercross, 250 Outdoors. You rode them all, and I looked back and I saw, boy, you seemed to like Atlanta. That was your 2nd Supercross ever. You rode for the Star Yamaha team. They were a little new in the day back then. And your 2nd Supercross you ever rode in a 250 SX East, you finished 3rd place on the podium behind Josh Grant and your friend Davey Millsaps.
Yeah, man, that race, I remember it. I remember the last lap like it was yesterday. Davey, Davey's like my brother. I grew up riding with him. He actually fell, and we had 3 laps left, I believe, and I was in 2nd. And I see Davey coming. I'm like, dude, I don't care. Just pass me. I'm so happy to be where I am. I ended up getting 2nd. I ended up getting 3rd with Star Racing, you know, and Bobby kind of started where we're at right now. And Bobby's built his team, and and now is one of the best teams that America has. You know,
you were there at the very, very beginning of it all, and I look back and you really did well at Atlanta. There must have been something. So I'm thinking you and Roxon must have that fuzzy feeling here. You probably have that same thing, and then Cooper Webb seems to have it at Arlington because he's won there a whole bunch too. So it is true when you go to a certain location. Maybe maybe for you Atlanta because you were living in Florida, not too far from there. I'm sure it had something to do with it. So coming off this corner right here in this Dunlop, this obviously you can see is just a 90-degree right-hand corner, and we're heading right back across the starting line right here. But it's flat out section here, gives an opportunity for the riders to glance over their left shoulder, see their mechanics, get a pit board here, and coming into a pretty sharp corner that you were discussing with the Dirtworks guy about where to place this Yamaha inner cone here, tough block, the corner marker there, because you felt like at one point it was a little bit too far. You thought it was too far making the corner too that everybody would take the inside line.
Correct. And then we're talking about the 90s. You know, this is 3 90s in a row you're talking about. So the track is you're adding some speed here. You know, and then crossing through the the mechanics area here. Yeah, and I suggested, I don't know what they're gonna think. You know, when you have this banner here on the inside and this dirt that is so good, you're gonna get awesome inside rut, you know. So when you have this inside rut and you're looking, you know, you have 20 feet over here, you're cutting a lot of track. So you know, I feel like everybody's gonna go here, so I just suggested let's bring it maybe 5 more feet this way. So you'll get the inside, but if somebody wants to go outside, it's not gonna be a lot slower.
Yeah, it's not so detrimental to them. Yeah, so you actually asked them to move it, and it looks like they did. Look at this, they just tilled this. This is the perfect dirt right here.
Yeah, this is actually, it looks too good to be true. It's fake, like I said. This is chocolate cake. This is what motocross people love to see.
And so right into a wall here, and this is a wall jump, not quite as high as we'd probably normally see, but again, you don't want it to be stupid full of ruts. It actually does its purpose. And then this is in our one set of whoops right here. And normally we've been seeing that kind of stereotypical 9 or 8 or 9 whoops. This one's actually 10 long, and it's very, very interesting at the end. It has an immediate, almost a complete 180 corner heading back down the starting line. So this is going to be interesting. If you're carrying full speed at the end of these whoops, especially early on in qualifying, if you're one of those 250C riders or the 250Bs when the track's pretty fresh, you're going to have a hard time getting stopped for that corner.
Oh yeah, I agree. And you know, it's funny you mentioned with the wall here, there is going to be a guy that tries to jump from the wall to the first whoop and try to connect some kind of a jumping. I believe that, as you said, the first couple practices, these are going to be skimmers, right? But as the night goes on and they get really rutted maybe by the third main event, you might see a pretty deep rut in this thing. So you know, it's, as you said, this last whoop is going to make it very challenging to stop regardless of what you do. And I think this is another place where you can make up a lot of time.
So question, I remember you came pretty close. It seemed like winning Unadilla on a 450 for Factory Husky when you rode the two for Husqvarna there. I think you got a second that one and you got a third at Washougal there. So I mean, for you, how important, obviously, in the 450 MX class like that, you must have felt like, God, it's close. I got a podium at Washougal, Unadilla, I got second. I mean, that must have been a nice feeling, but how badly you wanted to get that win.
I mean, obviously, I was close, you know, I was in second. I couldn't believe it, to be honest with you. I was just glad that I got the opportunity to go on the 450. A lot of people thought that I wanted to stay on the 250 forever. I was getting paid, I made good money, I was having fun, and I was competitive. The 450, man, I wish I could have had a little longer career, but I'm thankful, and I was able to perform and get some podiums there. And just blessed to be able to do this.
So this is that whoop we were talking about at the very end. They made it a half whoop at the end, but the track goes 180 all the way back this way. So you're coming through the whoops, you're just definitely trying to avoid dropping the front end, carrying the speed, trying to keep the front end light, and then right here, all that keeping the front end light is counterproductive to trying to get your bike turned and heading back down this way. So I like this.
I think actually the guys that designed the track, they've done a really good job doing this because it'll force people to really hit this side of the whoops, because it is going to be tough. The bike is going to get upset and is going to want to kick. So it is going to be tough to stop, especially if you're carrying a lot of momentum with a front brake and trying to to get a good rhythm to stop, you know, and not endo.
Yeah, exactly. Don't want to drop that front end. So 180 right here, flat out across here. I always like these starting line straightaways because it gives the guys some opportunity to build some speed. But also, if you come out tight and the other guy drifts wide, you know, outside, inside, all that passing that we're all loving Supercross and motocross, and that's just what makes our sport. But this is a perfect opportunity for that. You get a little better drive right there, and you're coming across here, and you got an opportunity to stuff a wheel underneath here before you go into a sharp left-hand corner and then head back towards the finish line. I mean, this is where it's at, especially with those big 450s. But so speaking of the 450s, Jet seems to have kind of started to separate himself there, throw a couple of wins, a back-to-back win now the last couple of races. I think he's ending up now, he's got a 13-point lead on Webb. Webb kept him honest, obviously, last week. But Jet seems to be able to ride that, get that little lead, and then just hold that whatever he needs kind of a lead. He doesn't do anything excessive there. So
it's crazy that you say that. It is weird watching Jet ride because he's able to, he goes faster than everybody or just as fast, but he looks so in control, you know?
Yeah.
And when somebody looks in control at that speed, it's dangerous for everybody else. So it's impressive what he's done. It's amazing to watch him do what he does.
Right, so coming into that Triumph bowl corner there, it's not a full 180, but it's definitely more than a 90, and you come into the corner there, set it up, and these guys were still off this little knob here. I didn't know how they were doing it, but I saw they were testing the transponders, and they were checking to make sure that the finish line transponders were working, and it's not any faster. There's a little roller there, but I did see a couple, I think it was Shane McElrath or something, that he did clear that, and I saw it seemed like the Suzuki Chisholm and those guys were just doing a transponder test for him. But you know, this is a pretty simple thing. You can land up here, even if you land there, it's not a problem. You get a good run for the finish.
But this is is definitely something that you want to show to the fans. I mean, this has been hit by 2 motorcycles, and you can see one time of going by what it does, you know. Imagine going over and over with 50, 60, 100 motorcycles. This is gonna get chewed up. This is gonna get beat up. It's one of those things that this dirt looks amazing, but it's challenging.
Yeah, the bigger hole this gets right here, I think you're gonna see riders come over that first one and they're gonna wheel hop. So you're gonna basically get the front end up high, rear wheel on that bump, and pop this thing, don't you? I mean, do you think that's a good option?
It could be a good option. I think I actually like this coming backwards on the start straightaway. Coming inside, some people are gonna roll and kind of double here. So it opens up, it gives a different option to the riders to be able to either, you know, try different rhythms and get, you know, if somebody's going inside, the other rider can go outside and vice versa. So it's good.
So coming over here, finish line jump, our standard Supercross finish line that we see all so much. Obviously your goal is to light the candles first, but only 2 people get to do that. But in this particular race, we're going to see it done 6 times with the Triple Crown format, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. This is an awesome finish line. Honestly, like it's, you know, if I've won 5 times, I was able to feel that heat when you cross this finish line in first. It's a sensation that you can't really explain. But landing into here, as we see the sand, man, this right here is a very brutal part of the track.
The last time I stuck my foot in my mouth, there was one particular sand section, I think it was in Arlington. Didn't look that tough. I go, oh, it's not gonna be, it ended up being the hardest section in the whole track. So I'm not gonna say anything about how difficult this would be, but it looks more difficult than your usual sand section right here. So you can see the guys that were riding up here, it is very, very soft. They've got a big knob right here. Just 1 bike or 2 bikes doing that transponder test made a pretty good sized rut through here. So this is going to be a fun, exciting section here. So what's your, you've spent some time in some sand down in Florida with living down there a lot. Is it something you like to ride on?
I did not like the sand.
You like Atlanta.
Atlanta, clay, hard pack. Okay. But man, talking about the sand is one of those things that is not just challenging for the motorcycles, for the riders, but for visibility, you know, like if you're behind somebody and you're trying to pass, I mean, this roost is literally so thin, it goes everywhere. So it's important if you get a clear track. I mean, it just makes your life a lot easier. So it is important to get out of this pretty clean. And the bike, the tire comes out very sandy. So you know, it kind of throws off the traction a little bit. So it's weird.
Well, speaking of that, you know, luckily in the sand, they won't be running our MX-14 scoop tires, so you're not going to be getting hit with that. They'll be running more traditional tires like the MX-34, and, you know, so it's more of a knobby. They won't have quite the drive they're normally used to in the sand, but it's typical of Supercross where they very rarely are running any sort of paddle tire or something, a scoop tire in those situations. So last year we talked about, you know, how close Barcia was to winning this race. I mean, he came within less than a second of getting Ken Roczen towards the end. And so if you were a team manager like Justin Barcia, I want to say, you know, there's been some riders that have performed very, very high, especially in the 250 class, Cody Schock and guys like that, Max Anstey. Those are riders that have probably raised the bar in their performance. But I think a lot of us thought that Justin would be more towards the front. He sits in 10th right now. He's had a couple of really tough breaks, you know, some injuries, some other things in there, but he had the podium at San Diego. But I mean, he's also had, you know, an 18th, a 17th, a 14th, a 13th, and a 12th, and an 11th. I mean, that's not typical of Justin. Do you think this is a race he could get back on track, drawing off of what happened here last year?
Well, honestly, what happened here last year, you saw a Justin Barcia that was a dangerous Justin Barcia, and you don't want to let Justin get dangerous like that, because he is incredibly good. But I've seen Justin. He trains at MTF with us. He has not been comfortable, you know, and I think they're working really hard, and I think he's finding something that people are going to be surprised. This next half of the season, you might see a different Justin Barcia, and I hope, you know, me and Justin have had our arguments throughout my career, but he's an awesome rider. You know, I grew up with him training at MTF, and you know, it only takes one round to get your confidence level up high sky, and then, man, you never know what can happen.
No, there's no question. That's why I love this year. I've really focused on trying to have my co-host be a team manager that used to race, and somebody obviously in your case with over 120 top 10s. I think you had 26 podium finishes and your 5 wins. So it's not like you don't have the experience, but also the insight living down there and, like you said, practicing and training with these top riders. So you clearly. So another rider, let's switch back to the 250 class, McAdoo, Mr. Consistent rider, multiple seconds in a row now. He started off obviously with a crash and being involved in Detroit, then goes second. How close do you think is he to winning?
Well, it all depends on the start, you know. I mean, this 250 class is, and Cameron has always been a fast rider, you know. So I feel like right now it's that first place is up for grabs, and especially in this 3 main event format, you know, you need to come out 1-1-1 to get out of this carnage, because if you you get a hole shot in the second main event, you get a 10th place start, you know, this is a sprint. You're not going to be able to get through the pack, especially with this sand section and how rutted it's going to be. You're not going to be able to move as freely as you want. So it is going to be very important, and you know, hopefully that Firepower Honda, we can get him.
Top 3 riders, I made point notes here. They're separated by just 5 points. Your top 7's only separated by 17 points, and Tom Vial now has worked his way into the lead there. But Cameron McAdoo is just a point behind, so we'll see what happens. And I'm looking forward to tomorrow. And I mean, the fans have really gone to love the Triple Crown. I know the riders. I mean, some people. Do you feel like they should get paid individual points for each of the mains, or do you like it the fact that it's an accumulation of the 3 overall and only, you know, basically it counts as 1 race?
I think it makes it interesting the way they have it right now. You have to be consistent in each main event to be able to get the 26 points that you're looking for. As you know, to add a lot of points like that, it could completely turn things around. I mean, it would make the championship a little more you know, crazy, I believe. But yeah, man, this Triple Crowns, as a racer, you know, it's a sprint. You know, it really is a sprint. On this side of the fence now, as a manager and trying to turn bikes around in such a short time is really challenging for all of us.
They allow you to have a backup bike, and that's one of the rules for the Triple Crown. And also, they used to run them different times, and now they're all the same, to where the 250s are all 10-minute main events plus 1, right? And the 12 minutes is for the 450. So, you know, we're looking at 16-ish laps, you know, probably in there, and maybe even 14 for the 250s, depending on. But it's not quite a full 20. But man, it's a lot of work for the riders, and they're doing a lot of extra laps, particularly at the main event dominant speed. So it's exciting, and we're all looking forward to it. So Martin, thank you so much for all your insight, man. There's lots and lots of knowledge in that guy's brain right there for sure. And thank you for tuning in here, and we'll see you next week when we go all the way to the Pacific Northwest for the Seattle round of Supercross.
Thank you.